A ruthless leader will fire people without any sort of consideration, right? They do something that they don't like or they underperform a little bit, boom, fired. A rigorous person, a rigorous leader, lets the best people not have to worry about safety or their position. Everyone, in this video, I'm going to be talking about a book called Good to Great. And in this book, Jim Collins essentially researches 1,100 companies and finds out what are the key factors, 1, 2, 3 things that actually bring a company from just being okay or mediocre to being some of the top companies in the world. And I want to present some of the findings to you in a condensed way and how I implement them into my own company, Conscious Business Mastery, in service of you building your company the right way and ideally making less mistakes than me and less mistakes than the 1,100 companies that they research. So if you don't know who I am, my name's Yamuna, and I lived as a monk for about 3 years in monasteries all over the world. I then started Jivanam Ayurveda and Wellness, which was a holistic education company. We taught people body work, we trained people in Ayurvedic sciences, and now I am the CEO of Conscious Business Mastery, which is a growth partner for holistic coaches, course creators, and transformation leaders to scale their impact and their missions to $1 million plus per year. So why am I covering this? Well, this is probably one of the most comprehensive books on business and what makes a company great that's out there. Jim Collins made a book in a way that most people do not make books, which he took 25 researchers and cumulatively they spent 14 years looking at the data across 1,143 companies. And they discovered 11 companies that made a great jump, from good or mediocre to great, which they defined as at least having 3x the performance of the rest of the market for over 15 years straight. So they went from underperforming to 3x the rest of most businesses for 15 years straight. And they wanted to see what were the things that happened during that transition point from good to great. Was it technology? Was it a charismatic CEO? Was it some secret that they had? And I actually asked a lot of my clients this on our Mindset Monday just yesterday. What do you think it is that makes a company go from good to great? And a lot of the answers in there, I was like, none of these things are mentioned. So you're probably going to like this, and I'll share a few notes from my company's meeting on this below this video so you can check them out. It's just going to be a Google Doc. All right, so the 7 principles that it outlines in Good to Great are as follows. The first one is called Level 5 leadership. You know, a lot of people think it takes a charismatic CEO or someone who's flashy or loud or aggressive, whatever it is, to get stuff done. And it couldn't be farther from the truth. There are a lot of flashy CEOs, but those companies weren't able to sustain growth. It was really people who had what Jim Collins termed as level 5 leadership, which is a paradoxical mix of qualities. So the paradox is that they have extreme personal humility while also being relentless in the pursuit of their goals. And so what this looks like in action is that there's a principle called the window and the mirror. And so they would look out the window to attribute all their success to their peers, their employees, their team members, etc. So they'd give away all success to those that they were leading. And then they would look in the mirror for anything going wrong with the business. Okay, and they would basically take radical responsibility for anything going wrong in their business. And most people run their lives, not just talking about business, but most people run their lives in the exact opposite way, where they point out the window to, assume all blame onto others, and they look in the mirror for all of their successes. And so a level 5 leader actually does the complete opposite here, which is what makes them so effective. Okay. So that's principle number 1, level 5 leadership. The principle number 2 is first who, then what. So this might not be applicable to you yet if you're just in the beginning of your journey, but when you think about a typical company, you think about, they must have a really big vision, they must have an incredible strategy, and then they find people that are like really committed to that strategy and they like launch off together. But Collins found that good to great leaders did the exact opposite. They actually found the best people in the world in different areas of business, and they got them on the bus, so to speak, and then they set a directionality together, utilizing the strengths of the people that were on the bus. Okay, and he gives an example of what's called a genius with 1,000 helpers. So this is essentially like just like what it sounds like. So someone who's charismatic or has a lot of vision or is artistic, and then they have a bunch of helpers underneath them basically executing their vision for it. But the problem with this is that when the genius leaves or dies or gets a new idea, all those helpers are left without a clue of how to lead and what they're supposed to do, and they don't have the ability or the authority to really innovate and blossom the business in their own ways. And so he basically canceled the idea of a genius with 1,000 helpers. And I've realized this in my own business too, like how big can I grow my business if it's just my brain as like the main brain, like kind of innovating, moving everything forward? And the answer is, somewhat far, but it can go much farther when there's many other brains that are smarter than me, more skilled than me in other ways, that are on the bus, that are moving forward different departments in my business in new ways that I couldn't even envision myself. And the last principle that he shares here under first who then what is a principle called rigorous, not ruthless. And so a ruthless leader will fire people without any sort of consideration, right? They do something that they don't like or they underperform a little bit, boom, fired, right? A rigorous person, a rigorous leader, lets the best people not have to worry about safety or their position, okay? And so I'll share, this is one of the biggest takeaways that I actually got from the book was how to be a rigorous leader rather than a ruthless leader. I don't think I had a big issue with being ruthless, but how to really be rigorous, which essentially means raising the quality of everybody's performance on your team in a way that's actually inspiring, uplifting, and works for everybody. Everyone's incentives are aligned. All right, principle number 3 out of 7 is confront the brutal facts, yet never lose faith. So what does this mean? First, we have to confront the brutal facts of our current reality. I ask some of my clients this: how many of you know your time to value for your clients? How many of you know your time to first value, your LTV, your cost to acquire a customer, your close rate, your ad conversion rate, your click-through rate, your funnel conversion rate, et cetera, et cetera? What are the finances of your business? What is the profitability of your business? How much cash do you have in reserves? Like, look at the data of where you're at, because finance is a huge part. Data is a huge part of your business. And data is one of the best places, in my experience, to confront the brutal facts of reality. Okay? And if you don't have metrics for client success to measure, right? Because it's not just your marketing and sales that have metrics. Every single part of your business should have metrics attached to it so you can see, are we on track in every single part of the business? Okay, and if it's just you running the business, you should be able to know those as well. Okay, and data is the most confronting thing, which is why most people don't track things. Most people don't know their numbers because they'd rather not look at those things and be confronted by the harsh reality and see how much is falling through the cracks. They'd rather just see how much good stuff is happening and kind of live in a fantasy, so to speak. And then simultaneously, you need to be able to never lose faith. So always have this unwavering sense that you're going to attain your goal while simultaneously looking at the data, not ignoring the brutal facts of your current reality. Okay, so this is principle number 3, super, super essential. A lot of people, they confront the brutal facts and then they get depressed and then they stop doing the core actions that create success, or they live in a fantasy land where they just look at the good things, the feel good things. They don't know their numbers, they don't know their data, and then they're actually just crushed in time because you need to be able to confront the brutal facts of your business and reality. Okay, number 4, I think you guys will really like this one. It's called the hedgehog concept. All right, and the hedgehog concept is almost like the business nerd's version of Ikigai. And if you're not familiar with Ikigai, just Google it. It's a Japanese principle relating to the alignment of your work with doing good in the world, with what you can get paid for. And essentially, this is the same thing except in business terms. So what are you deeply passionate about is one of the principles of the hedgehog concept. And I'll probably put a graphic up here of a Venn diagram with these 3 principles. Okay, so the first circle is what you're deeply passionate about. Okay, what gets you fired up? What do you obsess about? And what I was telling my clients, just yesterday was, what is it that you're passionate about that when you drink from that well, when you drink that water, you actually get more thirsty, right? Like it quenches your thirst, but it actually creates even more thirst. That is what passion means, is you drink it and you feel more sense of urgency around it. and more sense of importance around it. Actually, one of my clients told me that passion, and I have to look this up actually, I should have done my research before this video, but something along the lines of like passion is like what you're essentially willing to endure or suffer for. And I think that's a really great metric of what you're passionate about, because a lot of people say they're passionate about helping others or healing or about their business or their mission or whatever, and they suffer for a month when things are hard and they're like, oh, I'm just going to quit, I'm going to do something else. So how much do you actually care about it if you're that quick to give it up? Like if it was a marriage or a partner or a relationship and you're going through a hard time for a week and you gave it up, that would give you a rubric of how deeply passionate you were about that relationship. Okay, obviously barring like super severe, intense abusive stuff sort of happening, but you get my point here. Okay, so that's the first circle. What are you deeply passionate about? The second is what you can be the best at, best in the world at. Okay, and this is a really tricky one because there's a lot of things that you might be offering in your business, maybe health consultations, maybe blood work, maybe coaching, maybe mindset, maybe all these things. Can you be the best in the world at, like, think about all the different things that you offer? And I had to think about this for my own business too. And what's really helpful in this exercise is to figure out all the things you cannot be the best at so that you can get closer towards what you can be the best in the world at. Okay, so that's number 2, is what can you actually become the best in the world at over time? And number 3 is what drives your economic engine. So is it the amount of months a client stays in your service? Is it the LTV? Is it the amount of referrals that you get per customer? What actually drives the economic engine and makes it so viable that you can keep growing and growing and growing your company while increasing the value of your product and service, right? So the hedgehog concept essentially is at the intersection of those 3 things: what you're deeply passionate about, what you can become the best in the world at, and what drives your economic engine. And Jim Collins said that this is not a simple question. This is not something you just journal about for 10 minutes and you find out and you become a multi-million or billion-dollar company. A lot of the best companies, it took them like 4, 5, 6 years of contemplating this while already being deep in their work to really dial in their hedgehog concept. So it's really more of like an active, alive meditation than just like a journal exercise that you just kind of arbitrarily decide on in 10 minutes with your journal. Okay, so that's principle number 4, is the hedgehog concept. Principle number 5 is called a culture of discipline. And so essentially, disciplined people come from people who are disciplined in their thought, disciplined in their actions, okay? And having a company where you have people who are disciplined in thought, disciplined in action, who have actually done deep work on themselves, and you as a leader, you're exemplifying that sort of self-discipline for them, it's absolutely essential. Ruling by tyranny, by force, or just being, a friend to everyone with zero discipline, all of those are recipes for failure. Okay, so discipline is more about giving your people on your team everything that they need to succeed, while also expecting them to get 1% better every single day, and expecting yourself and your team to have the ability to say no. Okay, I really liked the etymology of the word decide. The etymology of the word decide means decadere from Latin, which essentially means to cut off all other options. So when you're making a decision, it's less about what you're saying yes to and more about seeing, okay, deciding means I'm cutting off these other options. And discipline also means saying no to all these other shiny objects, saying no to the sexy opportunities, the lifetime opportunities, so you can focus on doubling down on what you can become the best at and the core economic drivers of your business that will help you explode. Okay, so many, this is like especially true in the holistic and spiritual entrepreneur marketplace. It's absolutely wild. Just I'm going to start a retreat center and I'm going to have a coffee shop and I'm going to live a commune and I'm going to have this offer and I'm going to have a low ticket offer and I'm going to start an offer for women. I'm going to start a nonprofit. I'm going to start and you have so many ideas that you're trying to say yes to, and it's like digging 30 shallow wells and never hitting water, instead of digging one deep well and hitting a wellspring of living water, living substance that you can actually feed yourself with, nourish yourself with, and nourish the entire community with. So it's more about saying no to things than saying yes to a bunch of things. All right, number 6, this one's real quick. It's called technology accelerators, principle 6 of 7. And so essentially what Jim Collins found is that when you use it right, technology becomes an accelerator of momentum, but not a creator of it. Okay, the good to great companies never began their transitions with pioneering technology, for the good reason that you cannot make good use of technology until you know what technologies are relevant to your strengths, to the way you're disciplined, to your hedgehog concept, etc. And so he basically said, no doubt technology is important, but it's never the main cause of either greatness or failure of a company. Okay, so this is just super important, as you guys get into AI and we enter a new kind of revolution of AI, technology. It's not just going to be that you use AI and somehow now you're going to have an incredible company, right? Or if you don't use AI, you're going to be left behind, right? There's so many people kind of fear-mongering on these sort of things, but there will continue to be multi-million or billion-dollar companies or just really impactful people in the world who aren't using the latest gadgets and technology and softwares just because they have all the other elements of success, the foundations of success already built and instilled within them. All right, number 7, last one here. This one's really, really important. I love it. It's called the flywheel and the doom loop. Okay, the flywheel and the doom loop. And so the flywheel is essentially a principle that if you ever watched Indiana Jones, okay, in Indiana Jones, there's this massive stone ball. Okay, if you haven't watched it, just, imagine with me here for a moment. There's this massive stone ball, okay, much bigger than Indiana Jones himself. And it's rolling after him. And he has to run faster than the ball or else he's going to get smashed by it and smushed, okay? The flywheel is that massive stone ball. And it's like starting any important endeavor. It takes a lot of energy. It takes a tremendous amount of energy to get the massive stone ball to move it's the first inch, okay? Let's say it takes just 100 pushes to get that stone ball to move an inch forward. And then it takes 80 pushes to get that stone to move the next inch forward. And then it takes 60 pushes to get it to move the next inch. And so actually each push has an increasingly higher reward, but there is a threshold that in the beginning, it's much harder to get the momentum started with the flywheel and with this massive stone ball, which in the example of business is starting your business and getting it to a really substantial place. Like for me, watching entrepreneurs, which we've helped so many times, go from zero or like a few $1,000s a month to 10, 15, 20, $30,000 a month. That is one of the most difficult jumps to make because you don't have systems, you don't have consistency, you don't have capital to reinvest into systems, hiring a team, running more ads, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's one of the hardest things to begin. And a lot of people, they, push that stone ball, 30 times and they don't see it rolling down the hill. So I'll touch on that more in a second. But in this example, as that ball starts moving, we get greater and greater returns from our actions. And then it gets to a point where the ball itself is so heavy and it has such a momentum that it's just moving with very minimal amount of effort from our side. Okay, it's moving at a much faster speed and with greater force than we can even just have individually, ourselves. And so the doom loop principle is the exact opposite of the flywheel principle, which is essentially that a lot of people and business owners, they get caught in a doom loop where they don't accumulate those efforts consistently. They push the flywheel and then it doesn't budge, it doesn't go as fast as they want. So then they change the direction that they're pushing and then they stop. And then they find a different stone to push, right? A different business, or I'm going to do low ticket because I don't want to do sales calls, or I'm going to try this other thing, right? And they start all over again. And they're looking for some sort of magic factor that's going to make the stone ball not weigh any amount of weight. Okay, they're launching new programs, change everything up, so many things, okay? Don't get me started here. And yet they still fail to produce the sort of results that they want. And that is the doom loop. It is the sexy idea that you can avoid a 4-letter word called work and get the results that you're looking for. And so many marketers out there are trying to sell this idea, right? You can have a 6-figure business in 2 seconds. You can be a millionaire. Here's a screenshot of my Stripe account, of my ad account, of my Lamborghini, of my mansion, of my whatever, right? And it's so easy, right? Well, guess what? It takes tremendous effort. It doesn't mean it has to be, hard in a sense. You can do difficult things with a consciousness of ease, right? And in a meditative, grateful way for the most part, but it does take a lot of effort, okay? And in the beginning, it's much harder to roll that big stone ball. And if you just push 70 times and you say, well, this stone didn't move, that is the doom loop. Then you go to another stone and you push 50 times, you say, oh, this one didn't move either. But meanwhile, you're stacking little micro wins that are building up to that first breakthrough of momentum, which is where the ball just cracks into movement for the first time. Okay, and a lot of people, they don't stick with it enough to get there. So these are the 7 principles. I'll just go through them real quick. Level 5 leadership, where essentially the leader has a paradoxical mix of radical personal humility with radical responsibility. They look out the window to attribute success to their peers and their team members and other leaders, and they look in the mirror to essentially look at their own failures, their own weaknesses, and how they can get better. Principle number 2 is called first who, then what. So rather than having a bus that's going in a direction and having people hop in the bus as you go that want to go the same direction as you, you get the right people on the bus first, your team, who are all incredibly talented, and then together you pick a direction, okay? And we want to avoid a genius with 1,000 helpers model, which is a guru, charismatic with a bunch of VAs, a bunch of little team members that aren't actually contributing intellectual assets to your business. They're not contributing visionary assets and leadership to your business capital. We want to be rigorous, not ruthless. Okay. Principle number 3 is confront the brutal facts, yet never lose faith. We want to look at data. We want to confront the reality of the numbers of our client success, of our marketing, of our sales, of our finance, of all that stuff, while always experiencing an unwavering belief that we're going to attain our goal. Okay, we're going to move forward. We're going to win. Principle number 4 is the hedgehog concept, which is that Venn diagram of the combination of what you're deeply passionate about, what you can be the best in the world at, and what drives your economic engine, and finding the mixture of all 3 of those. Principle number 5 is a culture of discipline, which is more about saying no than saying yes. It's about having the right thoughts and having those right thoughts turn into right actions, and that creating a self-discipline within people rather than you having to rule by force or by tyranny, getting the wrong people to do the right things. You get the right people to keep doing the right things by creating a culture of discipline and by embodying it yourself. Number 6 is technology accelerators, which is that technology is never a cause of greatness or a cause of failure. And number 7 is the flywheel and the doom loop, which cumulative efforts actually cause outsized returns the more you go, but it's really hard to get that ball started in the beginning. And the doom loop is the opposite, where you don't accumulate efforts consistently, you change directions, you stop, you do it all over again, you try something flashy and new, you look for a magic pill that's not actually gonna move you forward. And so these are the 7 principles from Good to Great that absolutely changed my business. I'm gonna share a little document below where I meditated on some questions under each section. I highly recommend you buy the book and think about it yourself. But there are different questions and meditations that I had in regards to each of these principles for my own company. And I brought this in to a 2-hour team meeting and team vision where we all discussed our research of this book together, and it was absolutely profound. I would share the meeting recording with you, but I'm not gonna. So I hope the document is enough, and I'll share both of these below. Hope you enjoy. Please comment. I'll get back to all those comments myself personally. Share it with a friend if you like it. I'm trying to grow this channel. Please. All right. Peace out. Take care.